Honourable Peter Dunn.
Mr Speaker, like many residents of Wellington, I was delighted last Friday when the High Court ruled that the appeal by NZTA against the flyover around the Basin Reserve was to be rejected. And I want to say to the New Zealand Transport Authority right now that this is the time to drop this crazy idea. I have been concerned, along with many people, that since the court ruling, NZTA has been unwarily silent on whether in fact it will appeal further. This is the time to stop the nonsense. It was a crazy scheme when first envisaged. It was rejected properly by the Board of Inquiry and now by the High Court, and not even the NZTA can hold itself above the law in this regard. But, Mr Speaker, what this incident demonstrates is that we do have an agency here that, in my view, is now out of control. Only a few weeks ago we heard revelations about the number of speeding offences by NZTA-owned vehicles over a 9-month period. In fact, had those level of offences been committed by any other New Zealander, they would most certainly have had their licences cancelled and in some cases would have been imprisoned. But no, NZTA says we've simply changed our procedures. Mr Speaker, in my own electorate, the NZTA seems hell-bent on pursuing 2 roading projects that have been rejected by the Wellington City Council, rejected by all of the territorial local authorities bar one, and rejected substantially by the Greater Wellington Regional Council. And yet somehow the NZTA, unelected bureaucrats, seems to think that it can defy all of those opinions, and apparently in the former case the High Court as well, and proceed as it intended all along. Mr Speaker, it may be coincidental, but I note that the Chief Executive of the organisation has resigned effective from the end of the year. I want to say to the Minister that I think this creates an opportunity to restructure the NZTA, to make sure it becomes far less of an arrogant, we-know-best organisation that works closely with the local authorities and the people that it represents and serves, and implements solutions that meet the community's needs, not the aspirations of the engineers within the NZTA. And I think, sir, that the opportunity will be there with a new Chief Executive for a change of direction, and in the interests of a number of communities around New Zealand, I urge the Minister to take that course. Mr Speaker, what the flyover decision showed in Wellington was that the presumption that this phenomenon built around the edge of the Basin Reserve could resolve all our problems was completely ill-founded. In fact, the City Council's proposition some time ago of looking at a light rail link with a tunnel through the Mount Victoria area linking through to the airport makes far more sense. And I believe that the rejection of the flyover now opens the door to reconsidering that proposition, along with the spine approach that the regional and city councils have previously put in place for transport in Wellington. But, Mr Speaker, they need the NZTA to be an effective partner in that process, not the independent, we-know-all arbiter that decides from its lofty status what the best solution could be. When you have an agency that loses so consistently in the court of public opinion, now in the courts of law, now with local authorities, and yet still seems to think that its view is right and needs to be proceeded with, then, Mr Speaker, you have an agency in crisis. So while it's not appropriate to comment on the detail of the court decision, it is appropriate to say that that court decision provides now an opportunity for the Minister to restructure the organisation, to make it more responsive to community needs, and for the government's transport priorities to now be able to be implemented in a way that more reflects the best interest of the communities that they seek to serve, not the best interest of those that play with desktop solutions with an NZTA day in and day out. This has been a complete disaster. We need to learn from it and move on.